How are you, mate?
Yeah, good, thanks. Good. Been football training with my lad tonight and then just had my tea, so I'm ready to go.
It's took over that in witness, mate. Football, hardly any rugby pitches now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
proper took over.
both of mine are footballers, not rugby players.
Where the money's at, mate, innit? So before we get stuck into your rugby story, Danny, where was home for you as a kid, mate, and who lived at home with you?
Hull, obviously, East Hull. Yeah, I'm an East Hull lad, Hull KR side of Hull. I wasn't an Hull KR fan then, I was a Wigan fan. Um, yeah, there was the only team ever on telly because we only had BBC, we didn't have Sky. So the only time you saw rugby on the telly was the Challenge Cup, and obviously Wigan won it so many times in the nineties, didn't they? And that's when I grew up. So yeah, there was me and my mum and dad and my sister. I'm the youngest. My sister's 5 years older than me.
So where does your competitiveness come from, mate?
Um, I don't really know. I've not from my sister. I was always better than her at everything. So I hope she watches this. Um, I think one of my mates sort of took me down to rugby. I don't know if this is something you're going to go on to, but he lived down the street and he was going training one day. Was just like, oh, why don't you come? And I went and I really enjoyed it. And then it turns out the coach was someone who my dad went to school with. So my dad had come over and said, oh, like he's said that he needs to start paying subs and stuff like that. So started paying the subs and he was like, oh yeah, and he's playing on Sunday. And my dad was like, what? And he was like, yeah, I know he's only trained once, but yeah, we've got a game on Sunday and he's playing. And I didn't know what I was doing. And they literally just give me the ball and just said, just get the ball and run as hard as you can. Try and get through. And if you get through, put the ball down over that line over there. And I think the first time I got the ball, my dad says, this is the story my dad told. I just went running in and about, like, obviously this is under sevens, under eights. Everybody just
Yeah,
crowds around the ball, don't they? And then all
yeah.
of a sudden I just popped out the other end and went running off and scored. And he said, like, from then on, that was it. You just loved it.
Instant hero, mate.
Yeah.
So do you know when you were playing, was it like I say this to a few lads because we're a similar age, Dan, but did you have them like registration cards to prove who you wasn't?
Yeah. We had the cards. It was, well, I
Yeah,
think when I first started, it was a little bit of card with your passport photo stuck in it. So
yeah,
it didn't really matter. Anybody could have been anybody. It was no,
yeah.
it wasn't as advanced as it is these days. But yeah, I can remember we used to play against a team, um, and I knew that one of their players was older, but we couldn't ever prove it. Because the school I went to, it was two schools joined together. So one side was the school I went to, and the other side was a different school, like both primary schools, but we shared like uh, a dinner hall. So I knew that he was in year, I don't know, year four, and I was only in year three, and he was playing an age above and stuff like that. I mean, at first I didn't play above my age, so it didn't really bother me. But once I started playing my normal age and he was still playing, I was a bit like, he's older. But,
Smoking should have give it away, Dan, shouldn't
oh, yeah.
it? The tattoo and the
Yeah,
flag in his mouth and that.
yeah.
So where was your first club then, mate?
It was a team called Humber Social Club. So
Right.
it's like a working man's club in all.
Yeah.
Um, and at the time when I joined, they'd just become Humber Social. There used to be Reckitt's. Like Reckitt's is quite a big, or was quite a big club in all. And they'd sort of split off. Reckitt's was the open age, and Humber Social became the youth. And we only had a couple of teams. I think there was only two teams. I think we was under eights or under nines, and then there was an under twelves, and that was it. And then we joined up with Scala after about 3 or 4 years of me playing for Humber Social. We sort of joined up with Scala.
Oh, growing up then, mate, and we mentioned a little bit off camera about didn't really play much at school. So what was club rugby like for it to be able to get you into rep rugby?
Um, it was weird, really. I think the first time I played for any kind of representative team was maybe under 10s. So I'd been playing above my age group. So I think I played under eights, then I played under nines, then I played under 10s, and then I went back and played under 10s again because I went back to my own age. And it was that year we was just playing against one of the better sides because we wasn't real good. We didn't have a very good team. And we was playing one of the better teams. And just after the game, one of their parents sort of just went up to my dad and was like, "Oh, are you taking him down to the trials for at the time it was called Humberside, not all
Yeah.
schools. He taking him down for Humberside, and my dad was like, I don't even know what that is. I've never heard of it. And he was like, oh, take him down. I think it was on a Tuesday night on my school in Norfolk, and we went and like when we turned up, the guy was like, oh, like your name's not down, and he was like, oh, right, okay, we'll go. And he was like, oh no, you're here now. You might as well play. So I played and ended up getting picked. And I think a week or two later, I was playing for Humberside in Leeds against Leeds. So I think um, there was a couple of like the ex-Leeds lads like Lee Smith and Scott Morrell and John Smith and is it John Smith? That's his name. I can't remember his name now. But yeah, oh John Gallagher, that's it. I knew it was a common
Yeah.
surname. John Gallagher, people like that playing and yeah, it was a bit surreal, really. Just sort of came out of nowhere.
What were you like as a kid, mate? Would you have been comfortable in a new team?
Yeah,
Yeah.
when I first joined my team originally, there was just the kid who I knew from down the street. Like none of the others I
Oh,
knew. And like some of them, there's a couple of them who I played with at the time who I'm still friends with now. So
that's what it's
yeah,
about, mate, innit?
yeah,
Fundamentally.
yeah.
Yeah.
And but it turns out that I didn't realise until I started playing rugby that some of the kids who I went to school with played rugby as well. That was sort of only when we got talking about it. So then some of them was playing for the Humberside or all schools, whatever it was at the time, as well. So I actually knew a couple of the people, and then you just sort of recognise people from playing against them. And
Yeah.
um, I was always all right in that kind of situation. I'm quite a social person. I get on with most people, so yeah, I was all right.
Yeah. Sweet, mate. So did that give you the taster then, Dan?
Yeah, yeah, I think it was probably the first couple of years just playing, and I really enjoyed the game. Like I enjoyed the physicality of it, and I enjoyed like I was quite agile and quite quick, and I just liked that whole part of it, just the sort of like the athleticism of it, really. And think maybe I was about 10 or 11 years old, and I just thought, oh, I'd love to like play for one of the proper teams. But for
Yeah.
me then, the proper teams that I knew was like Old Dockers and Westall, like other than Wigan. Like
Yeah.
the next sort of teams I'd heard of LFC and UKR, but it was only a little bit after that a couple of my mates whose parents was Hull fans or Rovers fans sort of took me to a game with them, and I got to watch what is professional rugby.
Right, mate. So how did the rep scene show its face here through high school? So what was the next step for you on that ladder, mate?
Played for Yorkshire. So I went to and played for Yorkshire, and we actually did like a little tour. We went to Ireland, um, and we stayed with some of the locals, like on a council estate in Ireland, and just stayed in their house. And it was very different what people got. Like I got pretty much similar to what I'd come from. So it was like a three-bedroomed house, family, and then kids and things like that. And then one of the guys who I was with, his mum and dad owned their own business, so they had a real nice house and stuff like that. And he got put with one of the people who wasn't with us such a nice house, and
Yeah.
he hated it. Like there was
It's a
like
good
having
idea, that though, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was really good, and we went and we played a couple. I think we played two games, and we sort of did some activities in the area. Like there was like a water park, but it was like a natural water park, so it was like a lake where they'd adapted it and stuff like that, and it was really good. So I think I was about 12 when I did that.
That's
So
cool for like a young lad that.
yeah, yeah.
And you get like that. I imagine, Dan, that's the start of like being made up because you get a bit of stash or things like that in it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one of the things I always remember about Humberside is a tracksuit. You had a trackie, so it was like a navy blue, and then it had green, red and yellow, like V, and then white at the top. And that was like you used to see people like walking around the streets and that, and think, "Oh yeah, I wouldn't mind one of them." And then when it
That's
came to it, we
class.
didn't even get them. We got a shirt and tie instead.
It went all formal on you.
Yeah, yeah.
So was there any sort of rugby at high school, mate?
Only rugby union. We
Yeah.
didn't have a rugby league team now. It's weird because the school where I went now is one of the best in the country at rugby league. But while we was there, it was just rugby union. And I played a couple of times for the team, but not much. And then once we entered a rugby league competition, so the coach who coached me at my amateur team, because after I'd played for Scala, I played for Scala till I was about 15. I went and played for another team called Embassy for under 16s, and their coach was a school caretaker, and he sort of said, "I'll come and take your school team because I'll put you in a rugby league competition." So we went into a rugby league like schools comp, and we got to the semi final and did all right, but that was it. That was the only bit of school rugby we did.
So just while we're on that, mate, and because I've played both codes like you as well. If rugby union did it ever show its face to you in the pro level, and would it have been something you'd have looked at if it did?
No, it was never for me really. It was so we, like I say, we played at school a little bit, and pretty much everybody who played in our team was rugby league players, and we played a school from just outside of Hull, called South Hunsley, and all their players was rugby union players, and we absolutely tonked them. We beat them by about 40 points because they was very much interested in the rucking and mauling and kicking and stuff like that, and we just got it and threw it about. Um, so yeah, it never really
Out
appealed to
rugby
me.
done really, didn't you?
Yeah,
Yeah. No, I've noticed that, mate. You know, at like school level, if a rugby league team plays rugby league against a rugby union team, they 9 times out of 10 win comfortably
yeah, yeah,
because they just want to play. Like kicking's like a last resort, really, isn't it?
yeah,
But
yeah,
that's a fundamental part of union, and it's just got bigger on it. So when did
yeah.
signing pro forms become an option for you, mate? And how was your approach?
I originally started at OKR on their scholarship. So, like I said, like the team I played for, we weren't great. We weren't the worst team, but we weren't the best team. We were sort of like mid-table. And Hull FC was in Super League at the time. OKR was in the Championship or Division One, whatever it was then.
Yeah,
And
NFP.
yeah, OKR basically, not OKR, Hull FC sort of went to the top few teams and took most of their players. And even though, like, I was probably this, well, not probably, I was the standout player for my team at Scala, and I was probably one of the standout players in the league, really. They didn't really come and watch us because we weren't great. So they took probably 10 players from the top two teams, and then Rovers sort of picked the best of the rest. And so I ended up at Rovers on their scholarship at under 14s. And then at the end of the year, I got a phone call off a guy called Steve Crooks. Um, and he was running the scholarship and that at Hull. And he said, "Oh, look, we've obviously let you slip through the net. We've been to watch you since, and we'd like you to come down." So then I went down to All FC. So I went on their scholarship for under 15s and under 16s. So that was kind of my first sort of taste of anything professional.
Yeah, that dangerous divide you've crossed as well.
Yeah, yeah, no,
You're
yeah.
not asked as a kid, though, mate. You're just still playing for the love at that point, aren't you?
Yeah, and to be fair, I was probably more of an FC fan than a Rovers fan because one of my best mates, his dad, was a massive Hull fan, and he took us to like away games and home games and stuff like that. I can remember once going up to, I think it was Whitehaven to watch him, and on the bus, and we had quite a little tight knit group of rugby. Like my dad wasn't really into rugby until I started playing, but he started getting along with my mate's dad, and we used to go and watch the Great Britain games at Huddersfield and Manchester and stuff like that. So we got really into it.
Oh, good, mate. So how how was it going through the ranks there? Did every time you went up an age or when certain people come in, would you feel a level up in standard, mate?
I think for me, when I first started with Hull, we like in the academy, so we'd done the scholarship and then they came out and offered, I can't remember, there was about three or four of us. They offered us like proper contracts where it's an academy contract, but if you play well enough, you can play for the first team. Whereas a lot of
Yeah.
the other, and we used to get paid monthly. I felt like a millionaire. I was getting 200 quid a month.
It's nice though, isn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, I had a moped, so it covered me petrol and all that. So
Yeah.
I was getting 200 quid a month, from all, and like most of the other lads was just sort of on match money. So I think you got something like 25 quid if you lost, 50 quid if you won. Um, but I was getting my money all the year round, and I was getting the same as them. So 25 quid if we lost, 50 if we won. So I was doing all right, and we didn't have a bad team. The first season I went, it was under 17s, but I was only under 16s. So we got to the grand final that year and played against Wigan, and that like the Wigan age group above me was Kevin Brown his year. Because I remember when we came to play him early in the season, and one of the lads who was his age, and he's like the best player, like one of the best players in the country, like, and he's opposite you, so you need to play well. And I did all right. They tonked us, but but
Good
yeah, it was like
experience
my
though, Danny,
first
isn't it?
taste. Yeah, my
Yeah.
first taste of sort of academy, and we'd got to the grand final, so it was good.
And your scooter's well paid off then if you're winning games, isn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So what did you start as a six rather than a 13, Dan?
I played six at first, and then the next year when it changed from 17 to 18, so I was still an age younger, but I was one of the older ones. Played a bit more 13, but I sort of flipped between the two, because the sort of the kids who I played with when I first came into the side, the six and seven was both like the two best players at their age group in all. So then I had to play 13 a bit, but then one of them changed from a six to a nine. And then that's when I started playing standoff a lot. Um, and then from then on, I played a lot of standoff and it was different. So like now your 13 plays in the middle, but then you sort of had his scrum half and then your six on one side and your 13 on the other, who played pretty much the same role. So I was just doing the same thing as a standoff, but with the 13 on my back, really. And it was probably because we had some decent young kids beneath us coming through. So beneath us, there was a kid called Rob Blakeborough, and he'd come through. He's sort of him and another kid was the halfbacks at the best team in the country, you know. And one of them had gone off to Bradford and he'd come to Hull. So like he was sort of coming through, and then below him there was Tommy Lee. And he came through. So by the time like we got to playing sort of like what became the A team, like under 21s, the halfbacks and the 13 was Anthony Thackeray was seven, Tommy Lee was six, and I was 13. So we didn't have like a bad little spine.
So I know you've actually described that really well, mate. But how did the picture of a pitch and a game change from the number you were playing as you got older? Because the game evolved with the 13, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Yeah. So when I first started sort of getting into the first team, like I said, in the academy, you was just like another halfback, one on the left, one on the right, and then
Yeah.
your seven was in the middle, distributing either way. But yeah, when I got into the first team, and it was very much the same. So you had, but they played it a little bit different. So they had the nine, and then on one side they had the seven, which at the time was Orney, and then on the other side they had the six, which was Cookie, and
Yeah.
then Cookie had the fullback with him. So that's where he got his extra number, and Orney had me. which was the 13. So that's where you sort of tried to get your extra number depending on who was playing the ball. So I played on an edge a lot, played on the right edge at first when I got into the first team, which suited me because I was always right foot step. So
Yeah.
it kind of suited my game. And I think when the first proper season I played in 2006, I played 20 games and we won 13 on the bounce and managed to get to the grand final. So it was a bit of a whirlwind 12 months really, because 2005 we finished the season with the academy by winning the academy grand final against Wigan.
Yeah.
And that was a really good win when you go through the Wigan team. There's some like superstars in it. You've got Chris Ashton in there, Joel Tompkins, Sean Gleeson, Daryl Goulding. So there's some decent players knocking about in there.
Yeah. No, and the beauty is, like you said, the transition was smooth as well, mate. So you played a similar way from like what it'd be known now would be junior academy, wouldn't it? Reserves.
Yeah, yeah,
But we knew it as like 18s, 21s was sort of your reserves, wasn't it? But first team players would play in that team, wouldn't they? Bands,
yeah,
form,
yeah,
injuries. Yeah. And then so your transition's been nice and smooth. Personnel have sort of stayed the same, especially when
yeah.
you're being successful. So must have been quite smooth for you.
Yeah, it was. And yeah, like you say, the A team at the time, it was I think he was allowed eight first teamers. So we had like eight first teamers a lot because the first team had managed to keep their team fairly fit. So
Yeah.
I think at the time the first team was playing was myself, Scott Wheeldon, Kirk Dixon, Liam Higgins, uh, then Anthony Factory when he came in, Tommy Lee when he came in, Craig Hall. So there was there was some decent players knocking about, and then you would get sort of some people, like you said, coming back from injury. I remember playing against Amos Roberts and Becca Palliasina for
Yeah.
Wigan when they was playing for Wigan because they was coming back from injury, and I just remember thinking, this like I'm mad. Like these two are like superstars.
Yeah. And one of them's an extremely fucking dangerous ball carrier, mate, and he
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, it was sort of when Peter Sharp came over that the the role of the 13 changed a bit. And he sort of described it to us as there was a guy called Dallas Johnson. I don't know if you remember him. He played
Yeah.
at Melbourne, and I think he came over to Catalan. And like he
He
was a
did,
bit of a
yeah. He
ball
was a
player.
state of origin money for Queensland.
Yeah, yeah. So he could
Yeah,
play with the ball a bit. Like he had good skill, but he was tough and like he played in the middle. He made a lot of tackles. He carried the ball and stuff like that. And Pete wanted me to do that. Like he wanted me in that kind of role. So that's when we kind of started changing the 13 role. Um, but I I'd sort of spent probably from the age of about 13 or 14 up until the age of 18 when I started getting in the first team as more of a as I was a good runner of the ball, but I was a ball player. So I would use like a step or a dummy to run the ball and distribute overtimes and stuff like that. Like I want just to like here, give it, take it up, like a not
yeah,
not to be rude, but like a someone who was a bit more dumb and doesn't have the skills or the brain to do anything else. So like I was more, I felt like I had a bit more about me for that role, but and maybe just didn't have the size. At that time anyway, when I was
yeah.
21, 22 years old, I want I want real big still. I was maybe only 90 kilos and probably needed to be more towards 95 or 100. And unless you pile a load of weight on, it's hard. Like if you want to be quick or you want to stay in shape, putting weight on's hard. Like if you're trying to put muscle on. And so it was it didn't really work out for me in that way. And they sort of went down a different route. We signed Mick Crocker, which he didn't end up coming over. And then we signed Craig Fitzgibbon and he played 13. Then Radders as well, he played 13. So it sort of changed and it became more of someone who was a bit more of an out and out forward, like a big back rower or a middle, like a front rower who played 13.
Yeah.
Um, and sort of developed into someone who could ball play as well. I mean, the role of it now, like if you look at John Asiata who plays at FC now, like he's
Yeah.
sort of perfect example of it. Like he's big, he's strong, but he's got really nice hands. So that's
Yeah,
like what every kind of team sort of wants at 13. And I think a lot of teams do have that. I think Wigan probably was the first ones who sort of had a 13 who was big, strong, and could ball play. And that was Andy Farrell. And then when he
it was.
left, it was
Yeah,
Sean O'Loughlin.
Lockers.
So
Yeah, they were lucky,
yeah,
weren't they, mate?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So do you know when you've experienced a grand final at them two levels quite early, Dan? Sorry to put you on the spot, mate, but do you maybe take that a little bit for granted that that's going to be a regular thing?
I did, yeah. So the academy one was obviously I played academy for 3 or 4 years at that point, and
Yeah,
so getting there, and obviously my first year I'd got into a grand final, and then my last year I got into a grand final, so that felt quite good. But then, yeah, I think certainly the getting to the actual Super League grand final probably felt like, you know what, this is going to be like we're going to be in finals a lot, and obviously we lost, and then excuse me. The following year, I think we got knocked out of the playoffs by Wigan in the first round of the playoffs. And then 2008, we had a really terrible season in the league. We got to the Challenge Cup final though. Um, and obviously we got beat by Saints, but like for the pretty much the full 2008 season, I played in the halves because we'd signed Adam Dykes, and he probably I think he played 15 games of the year. And then the other half back was Richard Horn, and he ended up he broke a bone in his neck and missed pretty much all of the season. I think his first game back was the Challenge Cup final, and he weighed about 10 stone. Went through, he'd lost that much weight. Poor bugger. Um, but yeah, it did feel kind of that way that we'd maybe had the team where could um challenge a lot, but obviously there was certain things that happened. Paul Cook leaving was a massive one. And
it's a
it
mad
took
one and a big news that weren't it, Danny, at the time?
yeah, it
Yeah,
was. And it took so that was like 2007 and we never really recovered from Cookie leaving. And then 2008 came and we signed Adam Dykes, like we say, and he was a really good player, but we just couldn't keep him on the field. When he played, we won, but
yeah.
it was keeping him on the field. Um, so that was sort of when we sat down before the Challenge Cup final in 2008 and had a discussion about things that you wanted to say and things like that. And that was my thing. I said, I took the grand final for granted. Like I
Yeah.
didn't really take it all in and probably give it as much respect as I should have done because I thought, oh, I'll be back here again, and never played in another. So
Yeah, no, I imagine because obviously you mentioned and like I was the same. I grew up in the 90s, mate, and like it did send. I was quite lucky, like the old chip box and all that. I got to watch the sky, but like when you've grew up and been brought up on the Challenge Cup, that must have been extra special, mate. Making that showpiece event, so it meant that bit more, and it's your hometown club essentially, isn't it? Because you're a FC fan. So you're like
yeah,
the
yeah,
ideal person to put that across to people, really, aren't you?
yeah. And I think that one of the things for me was so I don't know if you remember it, but they always used to have like a schools game
Yeah,
before the Challenge Cup final. And the year it was supposed to be out like my age group and my team to do it, so whole schools, it got changed because it was like the centenary year. So then they brought the schools from whichever was the first ever Challenge Cup final. Can't remember who it was now, in Batley or someone like that, and can't remember. So we didn't end up doing it, and then 2 years later, I think it was. They got to go, and it was like people like Danny Houghton and Tommy Lee. So they got to go and play at Wembley. So like then that kind of thing was a bit like, oh, I can't believe I've missed out. I'm never going to get there. So getting to go, and it was the new Wembley as well. So getting to go there, and obviously Hull had won it in 2005 at Millennium Stadium, and I was there. I was part of the sort of the first team squad, but not on the match day. So I was there in my suit and tie getting pissed. But
sounds all
yeah,
like that.
like yeah, sound being a part of that whole scenario, like it just makes you hungry for it.
Yeah. And what does because I understand, when you're in the moment, mate, and people like me ask you stuff, and you've got to be cliched and say the right things at the right time, aren't you? But what would a final week look like for you, mate?
Um, well, grand final week was a lot different to
Yeah,
the Challenge Cup final. So grand final week, I was 20 years old, and I used to car share with a kid called Matty Dale. I don't know if you remember the name. He played at Feb for a lot, and then Scott Wheeldon, and we literally just used to fuck about all the time. And I remember thinking like there was one we'd got out anyway. I'd kicked him out of my car because there was messing about. I think there was wiping bogies on me gear stick or something like that. So I didn't take him home because it was my car. I said, I'm not taking you home. So I
yeah,
dropped him off at the pub opposite my house. And Scott Wheeldon jumped on the bonnet. So I like sped off and then braked real hard. And he like flew off, but like jarred his knee on the floor. And I was thinking, like we're playing a grand final in 3 days and I've just fucking ruined his career or something because it looked real bad, but he was
yeah,
all right. So yeah, so that wasn't a great start. But then in that same year, there was a bit of a mutiny between the senior players and the sort of not the backroom staff, but sort of the people in charge at the club, so like the CEO and stuff like that,
yeah,
because they've got sniff that Saints were going to be getting paid more per game for losing than we was getting for winning. So, like, obviously, when you win, you get so much money as prize money. And normally, most clubs to just say, right, we've won 25 games, we've got 100 grand, so that's 4 grand a game. So if you played in that game, it's 200 quid each. So
yeah,
for every win you've played in 200, something like that, however they
yeah,
work it out. And it went again. So we'd got it, and it was like, oh, well, I think it was something like St. Helens was going to get £600 per win if they lost, and if we won it, we was getting £550 a win. And was like that, like so. I think if we lost it, we ended up at like 300 and odd. So there was a bit of an argument about that, and the senior blocks sort of had a bit of a here and there with the CEO on that, and I think in the end, John Keir just like put his foot down and said, "Look, we need to get sorted. Just we'll discuss this afterwards." And but I don't think anything ever changed.
yeah,
But yeah, it was a bit of a strange week, and we. But I think that we went into the game and thought we could win it. We'd beat Saints earlier in the season at their place, and I think they beat us 12-6 for them to get to the grand final, and then we'd beat Bradford to get there. So I think we was definitely confident. I think they scored a try. Leon just scored a try about 2 minutes before half time, and I think that's killed us. If we'd have gone in at 6-all, it might have been a bit different, but we
yeah.
went in with to like 12-6, or it might have been 12-4, and it just sort of put a bit of a dampener on it.
I'm gonna say it's not like a sucker punch that, mate, when you've emptied the tank and you go in at half time feeling a bit like deflated, probably a bit deflated. That,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
And I think it was just a bit of Leon brilliance, like a show and go and put his foot down and he's through the gap. And at that time, like 2006, no one's catching him. Like he
no, it
was
was
he was in
unplayable, weren't he?
sensational form. Yeah, there
Yeah,
was a lot of them. They like Saints had a stacked team, like half the Great Britain team. So we'd
yeah,
done well, really, like sort of competing with them. Um, but we did have the belief because, like I say, we'd played them twice that season, once at home, and I think we'd beat them at home, and then we beat them away as well. So it
right,
was we were certainly confident.
yeah. Right, mate. So when the end of your time at Hull Cup, was it amicable, mate? And why Wakefield? What options were there for you?
So at the time, um, Hull had just been taken over by Adam Pearson, and Richard Agar was the coach, and I think Adam had come in and basically said, "Look, we've not been doing great over the past few years. And so I'm going to look to move things on." And I think I think Rich was a bit pissed off by it, but I think they sort of came to an agreement and Rich agreed to move on. And at the time, I'd just always just kept signing deals at Hull. So I'd never really thought about going anywhere else. I'd had a few offers here and there, but just
Yeah,
never really thought about it. And then I was talking to a teammate of mine, Gaz Rayner, he'd left Hull a couple of years earlier. And I was telling him, I said, "Oh, I've got an agent now, and Wakefield are interested." And then obviously Richard Agar had gone, and that made it a bit more appealing because when I first started at Hull in 2005, that was when Rich first started at Hull as well. So we'd sort of gone through the full thing together. And Gaz Rayner, he said to me, he said, "Well, you've probably got two options." He said, "You can stay at Hull because if they've offered you a deal," so they offered me just a 2 year deal on the same money. And he said,
Yeah,
you can stay at Hull and you can play 15, 20 games a season like you have done for the last 2 years. Or you can go to Wakefield and Rich is telling you that you'll be starting 13 and you play every game. And he said, and then you never know where that might take you. He said, in 2 years' time, if you've done exactly the same as you have done the last 2 years at Hull, you're probably going to regret it. He said, but if you go to Wakefield and give it a chance, and he said, in 2 years' time, you don't know where you're going to be. He said, you might be in the same position that you would have been at Hull, but you're not going to be any worse off.
yeah,
But you might have done really well, and you might move to another team, or Wakefield might do well, and things like that. And I sort of took that advice, and I just thought, you know what, it's probably good for me to sort of get out my comfort zone. I've been at Hull for 7 years. Like the only time you leave your city, well, in Hull anyway, to go on holiday or to play
yeah.
away games, that was about it really. So
And I suppose, mate, it's daunting, isn't it? Because home is home, isn't it? At the end of the day.
yeah, yeah, and I think the good thing for me is that when I signed, there was already three people who travelled from Hull, and I knew a couple of them. So one of them was Motu Tony, and then another kid was a kid called Andy Ellis, the hooker, and I went to school with him, so I knew him.
Right.
And then Frankie Mariano, I didn't know Frankie, but he was playing as well. So then myself and Peter Fox, because he was obviously playing at OKR and he'd left OKR and he'd signed for Wakefield. So the five
Yeah.
of us travelled together. So it was like a good little crew. Like you only had to
Yeah.
drive once a week. So
No bogies on you there, guessed it, mate.
yeah, yeah.
So how was your time at Wakey, Dan? Do you look back fond, mate?
Oh yeah, I loved it. I loved it. It
Yeah.
was I think Rich Hagar when he first got there, he did a really good job because there was like they used to train at the ground a lot, and the changing rooms, like I don't know if you've been to Wakefield's old changing rooms. Like now they're supposed to be class. I've not been in them, but they're supposed to be really good. But
Yeah.
back in the day, the changing room was tiny, and it was a tip, and there was like a little room off it. I think where the lads had like a bit of a DOS room where they would sit and there was a table and they used to sit and play cards and that. And Rich came in and he got rid of it all. He like changed it and he put some like fake grass down so you could sit and do warm ups in there and stuff like that and stretching. And he just changed a few things and even just had the changing rooms painted and all that kind of stuff. And just a few little things that just made it a bit better. And we used to we used to say like we was a bit of a ragtag team because there was a lot of us who'd left other clubs to come, like whether it was being released or if you decided to leave, whatever reason it was. I think there was 17 new signings or something like that. Um, and people probably gave us no chance, and we managed to get a win on our first game. There was the first game on the high pitch at Widnes, so
Would
we
be on
managed
it.
to get that. Yeah, and then yeah, it was a bit quiet after that. We lost a few games, then won a couple, and then lost a few, and then it came to the end of the season, and we went on a 7 match winning run, like won 7 games on the trot and finished sixth place, and then we went to Leeds in the playoffs, and we was I think we was in like within 6 or 4 points, and then we bombed a couple of tries, and then they ended up scoring a couple, and it was just we was probably just a couple of good passes or good catches away from beating Leeds in the playoffs, which would have been unreal. But probably the funniest thing about that was before the season had started, um, Gary Schofield had said if Wakefield make the playoffs, I'll run round Bellevue naked. And obviously we made the playoffs, so then we started our Mad Monday at Bellevue. We had a drink in the bar, and he rocked up. He just had a dressing gown on and a pair of slippers, and he said, "I'm a man of my word." Took his dressing gown off and went running around the pitch.
Play then, isn't
And then yeah, and then came up and had a beer with us. But yeah, it was.
it?
I loved Wakefield. I really loved it. And you know what? There was some tough. the first 2 years was more enjoyable. The second 2 years, rugby wise, was very tough. But as a group of lads, just unreal. Like I went to their ex players dinner last Friday, and Danny came and got inducted into the Hall of Fame. And there was like a table of us there who used to play together. So myself, Carl Wood, Peter Fox, Nick Scruton. Like it was really good. Like really good to see him and things like that. And I think there was just something about the whole sort of we're players that have all sort of been fucked off by other teams. Let's prove a point. So we really enjoyed it.
And do you know what that come across though? Because some of the rugby he's played was really good, wasn't it? Hence
Yeah,
the
yeah.
playoffs, like, yeah,
I think Rich managed to just pick out a few diamonds in the rough, and like Tim Smith, like if you're talking about a diamond in the rough, there's no one better to describe in that way. That like on his day, probably one of the most skillful players I've ever seen. But on a bad day, it was like he well, fucking hell, it was like he wasn't even there. So, but he had a good couple of years with us, and obviously at the time Salford was slinging the money about because of Marwan, and they took him, didn't they? So, but his first 2 seasons with Wakefield was unreal.
was him on Gurmo's video, wasn't it, with the Skinner?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because I looked and I was like, I'm pretty sure that's Tim Smith, but he always had like fashionable hair, didn't he?
yeah,
So I was
yeah.
trying
No,
to
yeah,
look, and he looked
yeah,
bulky
he's
as well. To
changed
be
now.
fair,
And he's
yeah,
mad into his fitness now as well. Him
yeah.
and his wife are mad fitness into it now. So
I did think that I was looking, going, he looks like a bit of a unit now, and
yeah,
his hair's gone. Like I'm sure that's Tim Smith, but them sort of videos proved that, Dan, don't they? Because I know
yeah.
Kermo's a good lad, but like it takes a whole team to come together for a lad to be appreciated like that, and that's what you've done.
Yeah, and I think to be fair to Kermo, he was probably one of the main drivers behind that. He was a local lad, and he wasn't captain at first. It was Steve Southern, the Aussie guy, who came over who was made captain, but he just didn't settle. And then Kermo became captain, and I think he really relished in the role because all the new guys who came over from overseas, he made them welcome, like showed them around Wakefield, best places to go, and things like that. And he did that all the 4 years I was there, and I'm pretty sure he carried that on all the other 5 or 6 years, however long it was he was there after that. Because everybody always speaks so highly of him, and like I say, he was sort of one of the main drivers around that in the team, and we had a good solid core of experience. Obviously, we had Richie Mathers at fullback who played a lot of rugby,
Yeah,
Ben Kane, Peter Fox, myself, Kermo. You had Ali Lawati in the back row, Andy Raleigh at prop. So there was a lot of experience knocking about, and I think that helped as well.
yeah. So when you go back to home, mate, is that a tricky decision that, or because the 2 years were tough rugby wise, was it pretty easy?
I think at the time, so I signed 3 years at Wakey when I first signed for him, and it was coming towards the back end of my third year, and we weren't doing great, and the club weren't doing great, and I bumped into Radders in the gym and in Hull, and he sort of said, "Look," he said, "would you be interested in coming back?" And I said, "Potentially, yeah." And he said, "Oh, well, I'll give you a call and see how we go." And this was the end of 2014. And I spoke to him again, and he said, "Look, for me to be able to sign you, I need to move some players on." And he said, "I'm struggling at the minute." He said, "So if you can get another year at Wakey, then get another year at Wakey." So I, I'd been talking to him anyway about a new deal, and I managed to sign one. It was difficult at the time because there was really like pulling the purse strings, so I had to take a pay cut to stay and things like that. But and it the dynamic had changed a bit. So I'd gone from in the first year traveling with 5 people, second year 3 people, and then it was just in my third year it was just me and Foxy, and then halfway through that year he left, so it was just me.
It's
And
twice as
so
hard that as well, Dan, done it. The
yeah,
pair
yeah.
cut,
So I was
the
going
only
like
travel.
4 or 5 days a week to Wakefield on my own and things like that. So it was tough, but then we signed Craig Hall from Hull and Jacob Miller. He was living in Hull and he signed. So them two both signed for 2015. So I've known Craig a long time. So we
Yeah.
got along well. And I didn't know Milky, but once we started traveling together, we built up a real nice relationship between the three of us. So even though, again, we didn't have a great season, ended up playing in the £1 million game. I really enjoyed it, but it was sort of already in the back of my mind that there might be a chance to go back to Hull.
Yeah.
And Motta would become sort of director of rugby there, and I still spoke to him, and he sort of got in touch and said, "Look, Bradders has said about signing you for next year." Um, and at the time, James Webster had been sacked, and so there was a bit of we don't know what's happening. We could be getting relegated. We're in the middle eight, and we're not doing great. So I agreed a deal and signed at Hull, and then Brian Smith came in to Wakey, and we managed to turn it around just enough. I don't think we played great still, but we managed to do just enough to battle our way into like a spot where we was in the £1 million game, and we won the £1 million game. And it was a strange situation because we had Paul McShane had signed at Cass, and Brian Smith went to him and said, "Go now." And we signed Scott Moore, so we signed Scott Moore for the
Yeah.
middle eights, and then Dan Smith had signed for Huddersfield. So Brian Smith said to him, "You go," and we got Anthony Mullally in return, and he played for us in the middle eight. So Scott and Anthony played really well for us. And he came up to me and he was like, "I know you've signed for Hull." Um, he said, "But you're more mature than them two." So I think you'll do. I think you'll do a good job for us. So I'm not gonna try and um, get rid of you. And I was like, "Oh, that's all right." And he was like, because when he first came in, he put me on the bench. Like I'd started pretty much every game that season, and
Yeah.
he started putting me on the bench because he wanted his back rows to be big. So he was playing Ian Kirk in the back row, and like after a couple of games, I sort of worked my way back into the starting team, and then come the end of the season when he was moving people on and stuff like that, and he said to me, he said, "Oh look, I want to sign you for next year." And I said, "Oh well, I've already signed a deal at LFC now." And he was like, "Oh yeah, I know." He said, "But like, can we not change your mind?" And I said, "Well, I can't. Like, no." And then he was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, it's a shame. I'd give you some good money as well." And I was like, "Bloody hell." But
Typical.
no, yeah. So that was how it happened. Obviously, played in a £1 million game and ended up back at Hull, and it was probably the best decision that I've ever made, really, career-wise.
Um, just a quick one on that. Is that an horrendous situation to be in that game?
£1 million game.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was. And do you know what? It was a couple of weeks. The few weeks before that, we'd had some bad results. We lost against Sheffield, I think it was. And then even, I think at the time, Magic Weekend of that season, Magic Weekend might have been later on in the season. And we got absolutely pumped by Cass. And I remember after the game, like some of the sort of more senior blokes like myself and stuff like that was talking. And at the time, even though it had not been announced, I'd signed at Hull, I'd already done the deal. And like I got real angry. Like, and I was like saying to him, like I said, it's like you don't care. Like you don't care that you might lose your job. Like pretty much all of you in this room have got families and mortgages and stuff like that. And if we go down, you're done. Like you lose your job, and then you've got to go find somewhere else and something else to do. It might be something else. You might not get another club. And there was people who agreed with me, and you can tell there was others who was a bit like, "Shut up," but like to me, I really cared about Wakefield and I really cared about everybody who was in that team. So getting getting the win and seeing how much it meant to everybody was unreal.
Yeah. More of a relief than like a made up, I imagine, as well, innit?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. And
Yes.
it was just something about Wakefield and sort of the Great Escape kind of thing.
Yeah.
They always manage it.
No, it's right though, innit? They hovered for a while, didn't they? And then obviously now White Ellis is in and that, mate. They look a completely different outfit, don't they? And
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
good to watch as well. So you go back, mate, and you win a Challenge Cup, don't you? Is that like a box tick? Is it nice to finally get your mitts on it again? And I imagine you were enjoying rugby at this point as well, Dan, again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I went back and it was a real weird start to the season. So we played think the first game of the season was Salford, and we did all right. I think people expected us to win, and we did. We maybe won by about 20 points, 30 points. But then it was the week after we went to Catalan, second game of the season away, and they was tipped to be a good team, and we absolutely pumped them. And I think that sort of kind of made people stand up and be like, "Oh, actually, like they're going to go all right this year." And then we lost three on the bounce, and one of them was Widnes away, and the famous one where they say that we kick Radders out the changing rooms, and it's not like that. We didn't kick him out; like he said his bit, and then Gaz said his bit, but Gaz sort of said like, "Can all the coaching staff leave?" Because I just want to talk to the players, so we did it like that, and it wasn't about kicking Radders out, but that sort of three-match losing streak, I think probably did us a favour because then after that, I think we won something like 14 of our like 16 games and was top of the league for a lot of the time, and we was winning games without playing great. And I think that's the sign of a good team if you can still win the games when you haven't played your best.
Signing it, yeah.
Yeah, and obviously in the Challenge Cup I think we drew Saints away, and oh, it might have been Catalans at home. Catalans at home the first game, so we won that, and then it was Saints away, and it was like, oh, we won that, and it was like, right, what's next? And I think it was Wigan, something like that, Wigan in the semis, and
Went
then
easier and easier,
we
yeah.
get to the final, and it's Warrington, and it was like,
Yeah.
and it was the same the year after. I think both years we played Super League opposition in every round, so. Yeah, but yeah, 16, it was just there was just something about 16 that was really special. I think it was the whole never won at Wembley. Like it'd been 11 years since they'd last won a trophy. And we'd sort of rebuilt the team. I know the season before that I think they'd finished about seventh and they'd made a lot of signings in 2016. Obviously, there was myself, Scott Taylor, Frank Pritchard, Sika Manu, Mahe Fanua, Carlos. So like you got six players there with a lot of experience between them. And then obviously in the team already you had Gaz, you had Mark Minicello, you had Min, you had Mark Sneed, Yemo, people like that, Tooley, Stevie Michaels. So the team sort of all came together and I think some of the rugby we played at times was unreal. And like I remember I remember playing against Shawley when I was at Wakefield, and he was just like this little skinny fast kid. But then by the time I'd got back and playing at Hull, he was like a completely different person. He was like he bulked up a bit, but he was quick. He had good skill, and he was a bit off the cuff, like he would kick for himself and stuff like that. But when you're as fast as he is, you can. So there was just a lot of good players around there, and it just went really well for us.
So how did leaving come about again, mate? And why York? Was that a transition you were ready for, like the part-time rugby?
Yeah, so I'd at the beginning of I think it was at the end of the 2018 season, Hull came to me and I was like talking to him about a deal for the next season because it had been my 11th season, so then I could have had a testimonial. Um, but they offered me a coaching job, because I'd always coaching had sort of always been something that had interested me. So they offered me a 2-year deal as a coach. Um, and this was sort of the back end of the 2018 season. Um, but then I ended up playing a lot of rugby in 2018. I think Radders had kind of seen it as 16, 17, I played a lot. 18, I might play a bit as the younger kids came up, like Jansen and Jordan Lane, stuff like that. And then that might be it. But I ended up playing a lot of rugby in 2018. And so then they said, look, we'll park the whole coaching thing and we want you to play again. So I played again and it 2019 wasn't great. I think I played 6 games, played in the opening game when it was snowing against Rovers when we got beat in the last seconds. And then I think it was another 3 months until I played again. So yeah, it was a bit of felt like it was a bit of a whimper, going out on a bit of a whimper, sort of my last season at Hull in full-time rugby. And at the time, I was, I wasn't depressed, but it just didn't feel right. I can remember I was playing like midweek games for the reserves, and the reserves competition at that time was awful. Like
Yeah,
it was very mishmashed. There was people playing for the reserves who couldn't even get in like scale at open age first team,
yeah.
but they was coming and playing for all FC's reserves, and it
It was a
just
lot
wasn't
of pay
great.
as
And I
you
remember,
play, weren't it, mate? Sorry.
yeah, yeah, and I can
Yeah,
remember playing on a. I went and played on a Wednesday night in Keighley. So it's Keighley's reserves, so they weren't great, and we weren't great. We managed to beat them, but the pitch was it was raining. The pitch was a mess. I'm like, I'm 34 years old, like playing on a Wednesday night in Keighley with a load of 20-year-old kids. Like, what am I doing? And like
yeah,
it just felt shit. And I was coming home and just like I didn't have to train. I played for the reserves, and the first team was playing on the Friday night, so I wasn't in again till the Monday. So I was just like laying on the sofa doing that. Like, missus was at work, kids was at school, and just going and having a couple of pints in pub or something like that, and do literally nothing to do. And it was a bit of a low time, and I was a bit stressed because of like running my testimonial stuff like that. So, um, I was going to retire. And then just out of the blue, I can't even remember how it came about. Whether it was Ben Kane or Graham Orr or someone like that, because they was playing for York at the time. Just sort of was like, oh, Fordy's asked if you'd be interested in playing next year, and I thought, well, and I sort of had a job lined up, but it wasn't something that I was really passionate about at the time. And so I thought, well, maybe if I can do rugby as well and give myself a couple of years just to transition into this job and get used to it, that'll be best. And so that's what I decided to do. And spoke to Fordy, and he sold it to me, and they'd signed some good players, and there was a couple of players going, obviously, who I knew. So um, I decided to give it a go, and I really enjoyed it. The sort of the build up in the pre-season and stuff like that was really good. It was just unfortunate that 5 games in the season got cancelled
yeah.
because of
No, and
COVID,
they've
wasn't
built
it? Yeah.
well, York, haven't they? He's been smart, Clint, that York. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that the second season I enjoyed that as well. It was a bit more up and down game
yeah,
wise, like as in how we played. But I finished on a bit of a high. We played London. I think it was my birthday. We won. I scored a try, and it was my last ever game of rugby. And so like that was an enjoyable day. Um,
class.
but yeah, so I felt like that was a better way to finish because I was only going to do the 1 year at York originally, but obviously when the season got cancelled, I've just thought I'm healed. Like the
Yeah.
6 months off has healed my body. I
Well,
might as well play again. So I feel
I was
like going
say that
out
you
that
probably didn't have a breather, did you, Dan? Sorry to interrupt you, mate. So that was like an enforced breather, but one well warranted, really.
yeah, 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 definitely. And I think that that was probably it. You get your 6 weeks off at the end of the season, but you know that pre-season's coming, so you're still going to gym and keeping fit. You maybe have 2 or 3 weeks where you don't do anything. But
Yeah.
for the rest, the other 11 months of the year, it's just full on.
Right, mate. So a few daft questions for you at this point of the chat, then, Dan.
Yeah.
So any pre-match superstitions, mate?
Uh, Not really. I didn't really have any, but there was up until I left home. So I think I was 22 when I bought an house. So I was playing first team rugby from 19, so sort of like for 3 years. And my dad used to make me my pre-match meal. That was like egg on toast, scrambled egg and beans on toast. So that was always it. So he would always make sure that he'd made me that. So that was as close to I got as a pre-match ritual.
Right, mate. So this next word definition's different for everybody, mate. It doesn't relate to position or out like that because a winger can be just as tough as a front rower and that. But who's the toughest player you played with and against?
With and against. So that is a tough question. Um, the toughest player I probably played with would probably be Danny Houghton. Like he's not. I wouldn't say he was your definition of tough. Like he's not an hard man or out like that. But for the size of him, the amount of games he plays, the amount of tackles he makes, like he was non-stop. And to me that was toughness. So yeah, playing with wise, I would probably say him. And Playing against, I'm going to go with Gaz. And only because he absolutely walloped me a couple of times when I played at Wakefield. So we played Wakefield when he was playing at Hull, and it was like if you really go into the line and you can draw Gaz in, and he'll try and bang you, so pass it out the back, and they just gave it to me on a short ball, and knocked me off my feet. I'm like, oh god. So yeah,
So if there was any player from any era that you could play alongside, mate, who would it be?
it would be Andy Farrell. He was my favourite. Yeah, I missed out. I missed out on playing against him by a year. So I think he finished at the end of 2004, and I didn't
Yeah.
play until 2005.
Right. Sorry, I know, but would that be a game that you'd put a ring around every season, mate? Like Wigan away, maybe.
And it was just the thing with Wigan is because of the era when I grew up,
Yeah.
the weird Wigan. I suppose it'd be like Man United, like 10 years ago. Maybe not so much now, but if you were in Man United, you just think, oh, tough game, and that was what it was always against Wigan. Wigan, it's a tough game no matter what. So,
Just think, mate, if you'd watched rugby 5 years earlier, you'd be a witness fan.
yeah, no, yeah, Martin
We were
Fire
Cup
and
Kings
Jonathan
back in the
Davis.
day, weren't we? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So your favourite away ground, mate, that you've played at?
Edinley. I love Edinley. I
Mega
think,
popular, hadn't we, mate?
yeah, I always liked it. I think obviously the fans are close. They get a decent number of fans, but I think now the redevelopment work they've done on there as well is outstanding. So it'd probably still be my favourite now.
Right, mate, if you could tell a younger Danny something, what would it be and why?
I would, you know what? I would say probably don't be so loyal. Um, and I know
It
that's
actually
maybe
doesn't
sounds
mean a lot now, does it?
no, and I think that's the thing. So at the age of 22 or something like that, I got offered a lot of money. So like twice as much money as well, three times as much money as I was getting paid, and twice as much money as I'd been offered at Hull to go and play at London.
Right.
And I sort of stayed not only because of loyalties, but because obviously I'm from Hull and I'd just bought a
Yeah.
house and stuff like that. So it did have its reasons, but like my agent was a bit like, you know what, like if you go down there and you take the money when you next come into the market, that's your value. So he said you need to think about that kind of thing. And but yeah, probably I would probably say maybe don't be as loyal, and it's a short career, so if you can make some money, go elsewhere. But then I look back on it and I think the way my career went and the success I had later on in my career maybe was because of the decisions I'd made early on. So it's difficult that one.
Yeah. Sliding doors, mate, but you'd needed that to live down there, wouldn't you? Like, it's not
Yeah,
beat
yeah,
around the bush, isn't it? So, like, the
yeah, yeah,
money's
definitely.
warranted. But yeah, I don't think your career would have been what it was if you'd have done that, mate, would it?
No, 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 I agree.
Yeah, I agree with you there. So if we've had a few, mate, and you're in good humour, microphones in your hand, and the DJ's asking you what you want, what you're giving the crowd.
It's a choice of two. So I have two karaoke songs. One of them is Maggie May by Rod Stewart, and the other one is Drops of Jupiter by Train.
See tunes, to be fair, that they weren't
Yeah,
expecting train. I'll be honest. I like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I love that song. So
and both can get joined in with. So they're the beauties of both songs, aren't they? I
exactly, yeah.
like it, mate. Wise man, wise man. So if you're willing to, mate, I want to 13 that you played with over the years.
Yeah, obviously, and I know you tipped me up on this a little bit, so I've
Yeah.
been having a think. A couple of the guys who I work in the office with are all fans, so they helped me along. And I went with Shawley at full back.
He's at the
Um,
Ionians now, I think, isn't he, Jamie?
no, he's at goal. Oh, I don't know. He went to goal, didn't he? He was playing at goal.
Yeah, I think he played against a lad that plays at Preston. He's at Hull
Oh,
Ionians now. Yeah,
all
with
right, yeah.
remember
Because I know he
Tom
went to.
Lynham?
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, is it all rugby
Yeah,
union?
he's
I know
there.
he went to all rugby
Yeah,
union.
like some of
Yeah,
them are Ionians. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah. So on the wings, I'm gonna go Gareth Rayner.
yeah.
And for Thule, Talanoa. Yeah, I think
He was
like
good
Gaz
business,
Rayner.
Danny, wasn't he?
But, oh,
Talanoa was good business, mate. That was a good
yeah, he
signing
was
up, wasn't
really
it?
good, really good. Yeah, and I think Gaz Rayner. probably didn't get the plaudits he deserved. Like he played for Great Britain in 2006 and five,
In
so
that
he was a
famous
really
game,
good
innit?
player. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Centres, I go Kirk, Yeaman,
Yeah.
and this one was a tough one, but I'll go for Carlos Tumababi. Obviously, I played with Kirk for a long time. I saw the beginning of like sort to more younger side of his career and then the end of his career, and he was quality. And Carlos, there's just something about Carlos I like. He's very silky. That's how I would
Yeah,
describe him.
he was classy, wasn't he?
Yeah. Halfbacks. This was a tough one. Like my standoff was easy. Rich on like every day of the
Yeah.
week. Um, I think he'd probably go down as Hull's best ever standoff. As I would, that's how I would rate him anyway. I know people talk about Dave Topless in the thingy, but I just like having played with Arnie and like spent a lot of time with him. He was unreal. And scrum half was the difficult one because Sneed is an obvious choice, and but I really loved Tim Smith, and I'm like, oh, so. But in the end, I went with Sneedy just for the Lance Todds.
Yeah. He should do more media work, Mark, shouldn't he? Because he knows the game. He speaks really well. When he come on here, mate, he was brilliant. Said to him,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
probably needs to put himself out there a bit more. Because
yeah, it does.
he's a
Yeah,
genuine star as well. Like, you can control a game on a shoelace, can't he?
yeah. You can. So where are we now? Front rowers. So front
Oh, mate,
rowers.
yeah.
Yeah, I went for Scott Taylor and Liam Watts. I thought I played with some really good front rowers throughout my career, but I think 16 and 17, I think them two was probably the two best props in the country, like and by a fair bit as well. Um, and I think the way that they played probably played a big part in us winning both of the cups. So Ucker is a very obvious one. He's Danny Houghton,
Yeah.
like, and it's a lot of people might look and say, obviously, like, 'cause I played with Richard Swain when he was first there, and he's like, some people like they're like he's the best ever hooker to play for all and things like that. But Danny just had a lot. Like Swain, he had everything as well, but Danny was next level. And I think that for me, when I watch all now, that's the first thing I think. So whoever plays hooker, I just think he's not Danny. It's like which is probably a bit harsh for me to say, but he's not. So yeah, he was me hooker, and then. Back rowers, I've gone double Manu, Willie Manu, and Sika Manu.
Yeah.
So not a
Oh,
bad little
but like,
combo
how
that.
good was Willie, by the way? Like, see,
Yeah,
he was
oh
like the new
class.
T, wasn't he?
Yeah, well when when we played Cass when he because he first played for Cass when he first came over, and we played him. And at the time, Peter Sharp was like, "Oh, Willie Manu, blah blah. Don't worry about him. He's a big waste of space." And we played him, and he didn't really do out. And then, like 2 weeks later, they announced we'd signed him. I was like, you can't think he's that much of a waste of space. But yeah, so yeah, and then obviously Seeker on the other side. Seeker was unreal when he came to us. I think he was there for 4 years, and yeah, really good. And then 13 is Gaz Ellis. He was just another level when it came to sort of like intensity and being able to lift the team without saying anything. So just him being in the team made everybody play better.